Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Tomás Ó Sé is with us. And Tomás, first of all, it's lovely to have you back. I'm sure, look, disappointment with Kerry under-20s, but nice to get you back into the punditry seat. How are you feeling about the summer ahead?
I'm looking forward to it, Jacqui. I'm looking forward to it is a strange season, and it's going to be very long, a lot of matches, a lot to cover. You know, I love getting to the meat of it where there's knockout, so it's going to be a while till we get there yet, but looking forward to the season. It's hotting up. There was a big match yesterday. This year, I suppose, since the very, very start, people were saying that there's, 4 or 5 teams that could possibly win it. It's hard to call the winner, and that's what makes it exciting. You know, we had long enough there where Dublin was the easy call for too long, and now, I don't think Dublin is the easy call anymore. So that makes it interesting, which is good for the rest of us.
Yeah, that's good. Well, look, I guess that helps, because even when you look at yesterday, having a good Ulster final that's actually competitive, it does kind of start to whet the appetite, because let's be honest, Tomás, before that we've watched an awful lot of bad games.
Do you know what it is, Jacqui? There's no excitement. There's nothing to look forward to. There's no bite. So you've absolutely had nothing in Connacht, nothing in Leinster, nothing in Munster. And, we were even in Munster hoping that Cork would get to a Munster final, that there might be something, given that the league that they had. But look, the way the system is going, Jacqui, and we all hate talking about it, but the way the system is going, the Provincial Championship is absolutely pointless. It's pointless. You'll always have, I think, for the traditionalists who'll argue, and I'd be one of the traditionalists in a way, the traditionalists that argue that you lose the Kerry Cork thing, you lose the Munster Championship, and you lose the Tyrone Derry thing, you lose the Galway, you'd still have that rivalry will always be there. Because of the history we've had for 100 years, that rivalry will always be there. But the way the whole system is right now, that you have a warm-up thing, you have a league, you have a Munster Championship, you have an Ulster Championship, you have a Leinster Championship, then you have this big, absolute 4-team groups scenario where you have 3 teams to come out. You're saying, when is it meaningful? When is it championship? When is it knockout? We're after creating a lot more games, and we're after taking the time away for those games to happen. And what you're actually doing is you're pressuring inter-county setups they're not professionals. Their turnaround is too quick. They all have day jobs. They all work, and they're not going to enjoy it as much. And I think the GAA will have to look at it eventually. I don't think this is the finished product. I don't think it's the right system to have. And look, I've always said it. This isn't new. I've always banged on that the Provincial is gone, even before they tried to chop and change it. I just think, only for Ulster this year, and it's only for Ulster every year. It'll be long gone. And I do think that the main stumbling block is possibly the people involved in those provincial championships that want to keep the tradition alive. Traditionally be fine. Rivalries will always be there. It's having a competition that gets the people interested in it. And look, to have something that sets up the best teams playing each other, but not having it as drawn out as it is at the moment, I think I think it's going to be very hard. We all at this stage, like I talked to a lot of friends. I won't tune into that stuff until it actually gets to the quarterfinal stage. You'll get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 games in between that'll be very good. You'll have Mayo, Kerry will be excellent. You'll have Galway, Tyrone will be good. There'll be another few that'll be excellent. But they want to get to the meat, like they want to get to the knockout stuff. That's what we all want.
Do you know what the difficulty is though, Rory? People say, oh, it's tradition. Like the GAA will never break tradition. But they have already by moving from September. So surely they're open to the possibility that at some point they're going to agree with everybody else and say, look, this provincial system is completely broken, as Desi Farrell called it yesterday.
It is broken. And I suppose the stopgap measure that was put in place is this, it was a sort of a sop really to the provincial councils, because they wield a fairly inordinate level of power. I mean, if you look at how the management structure is is compiled in Croke Park. Like, the provincial councils are the next in line after the Ard Corla, and you are into a situation where the turkeys have to vote for Christmas. But what it's left us with is an inordinate amount of meaningless football. There's a huge amount of it. And I think what will ultimately be the final arbiter on this will be the general public, because they'll start voting with their feet. We only had to see some of the Tailteann Cup stuff at the weekend and look at some of the crowds that were added to realise people, like, I'm not too sure if people will buy into this. Not like the championship. I mean, I grew up in an era watching Tomás play, as you did, Jacqui, where championship was championship. It was on the day, right? Now, nobody wants to go back to that, obviously, because one day you're bet, you're gone, and then that was very, very cruel too. But you're in a situation now where you have to lose 4 times before you're evicted from the championship. It's like they've brought in this prelim quarterfinal for the group stages on the basis that it was going to try and remove some of the dead rubbers at the back end. But what the law of unintended consequences has done is it's actually inserted probably 20 dead rubbers before we get to that final group stage. Like, there's only a couple of key games now in these groups that actually really matter. And I think, to go back to when the qualifiers first came in, even I think it might have been, was it Tommy, the Dublin manager, not Tommy Carr. Was it Tommy Carr? Tommy Lyons. Tommy Lyons was very famous for saying the football championship starts on the August bank holiday weekend. Do you remember that, Jacqui? And that's when the quarterfinals would kick in, 2 on a Saturday and 2 on a Sunday. And I think we're still at that. It's just the date has shifted, as you said, really. And that's when the football championship will begin. You do have 6 or 7 or 8 teams of a really good standard at the top end. Because if you look at yesterday, for instance, right? Louth, absolutely served up in the slaughterhouse. Louth, if you go according to your National League standings, are the 11th best team in the country. They only finished 2 places behind the team that utterly destroyed them yesterday. So look, there's a lot of issues. And I think the biggest and key point here, I'm not entirely sure if all this extra Gaelic football is good for Gaelic football, No.
Yeah.
I think, look, if you think about it, Jacqui, right? And it's as simple as this, because I know there was stuff said last week, in the last couple of weeks, about games not being on TV or whatever, games, like, it's kind of, I don't know, I might be stupid, I might be wrong in this. We have too many competitions, we have too many games, and we're after having the length of time, or not having, but we don't have the same amount of time we used to have to get these competitions in, yet we're after extending the amount of games. Then you have a situation, and it's beginning to start getting cranky, and wait till the teams and wait till the management start getting cranky and start complaining about it as well. But you have a situation here where you've pundits who are giving out about games not being on television. But if you look at it logically, right, there was a scenario last year where we have too many games for the amount of time that we have and the amount of coverage that we're going to get seen. We had a situation where you'd watch Sky or RTÉ, whatever way it was. Now you have a situation with GAA Go. The problem is, with the amount of games that are there, there's not a hope in hell. And I don't know the ins and outs of it. You have 31 games apparently that RTÉ can show, 15 are contractually. You have 15 games to spread over a kind of a group stage for the football, quarterfinals, semi-finals, everything. Like in hurling and football, you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen, And I think it's wrong. I think it's going to go down that road of you're swapping GAA Go for Sky. I think it's going to go down the road of having to pay for games anyway. I'd rather to be able to pay for one game rather than having to pay for Sky for a full year to actually watch a game. But I think, like, the talk of hurling's not being promoted, or it doesn't, I don't buy into that at all. I think the situation we have is purely because we have too many games and there isn't enough time to cover all, and then you're forced. Sure, who would have known that people would love to see the Kerry Mayo game? It's behind the GAA Go, that's fine. Who's to know that the Clare Waterford game would have been a damn squid? Nobody knows. It's very difficult to pick and choose games. The issue is we've too many games and too many competitions. TV rights have whatever they have. everybody's going to start getting cranky. We're not seeing them. It's just too compressed. And this like, I laugh because the Tailteann Cup is what the Tailteann Cup is. There's no, it's a championship for teams who get their crack at the All-Ireland and are not there. Doesn't mean it means less to them. They go into another competition, and by God, you see the results yesterday and what's happening. It means something to them. They're inside that competition. That's what it is. Okay, but then but
Tomás, is it not a Grand National for disappointed also rans?
Look, I tell you what, I think that small man syndrome stuff, that kind of stuff.
But Tomás, it was a tongue-in-cheek comment that was meant to wind people up, and you know what? It worked. I mean, like, people don't know is quite a witty character, and I thought it was funny, and I think sometimes people take these things way too seriously.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually get bogged down with that stuff, but and Don Logue does what Don Logue does, he's who has hurling's back. I laugh at this kind of stuff. Everybody, there's no fear of hurling in the Tips and the Corks. It's the hurling. Traditionally, hurling will struggle in other counties because it hasn't been the game there, and that's the way it is. But in terms of Don Logue ranting about not being on television and all that, I think it's not a case of nobody having hurling's back. That's not the case at all. The case is there's too many games to cover, and they're being forced. If you sat Don Logue and the group of intercounty managers inside, or whoever it is, and say, pick the games you want on television, we'll put them on. I guarantee you, Rory, the way it is, and they're all ranting at GAA GAA now. GAA GAA isn't the issue at all. Those games were on Sky last year, and people didn't have access to them as well. And there was brilliant games on Sky that they didn't have access. We're going to miss brilliant games. You have a choice. It's still there. It's the way technology is going. You have a choice of paying for it, and I have no problem with it. I don't have no problem with the way GAA GAA works. I think it's actually better than the Sky system in that at least I don't have to pay for the full year. I can pay for a match and watch a match, or else at the very start I can get them all. But I don't look, the Tailteann Cup and all that, it is, no matter what you say, there's going to be the crowds are less, but I would still argue, Rory, you look at Wexford, Fermanagh, like it does, there's something there for those teams. They won't get the coverage, they won't get the crowds, but it is something for them. They're playing knockout football and the sun is shining. And that's
not yet. It's not knockout.
Yeah, they will be. It does. I was a part of it with Offaly last year, and there was a great bite to it. The games are coming fast. It was different. You didn't know who you were going to get. There was a draw there. There was excitement there. I do think that is big for players. Like Westmeath won it last year, and it was a huge draw. They brought it into Croke Park. Is it important that it's on TV? I do think it is. Yeah, it's semi-final and final. I think it falls in for players. It's a big deal for them. They know they're being watched. You won't get the crowds going into it. Nah, that's not going to happen. But outside of 6 or 7 counties in the hurling that bring in crowds, there's no crowds at hurling games. Outside of the 7 or 8 counties in football that bring in the huge crowds. Look at Croke Park yesterday. The days of sold out houses are actually gone. Like, there's an amount of teams that can do that, and obviously you get to a certain stage in a championship, you'll do that. But to think like that, I don't think it's fair for people to say that the GAA are turning their back on whatever, on hurling people or football people, because it's not. It's across both. Hurling and football will be affected by this GAA GAA crack. So I think that is small man syndrome stuff.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to please everybody. And as you say, with the squeeze calendar, I think it's probably only going to get worse. Well, let's talk about some of these meaningless matches then, as you both have put it. Armagh Derry, I guess yesterday, Tomás, right, when I was watching this with Lee Keegan and Paul Flynn, they thought it was an awful game of football and said so. And then actually lots of people said to them afterwards, what were you watching? Because everybody in Clonus seemed to think it was a brilliant game. What did you make of it?
Well, I presume that the lads were just talking the fact that it wasn't open. The fact in fairness, it's not that they didn't think it was dramatic. I think it had everything, Jacqui. I think, look, there was of course you can argue that there was times where it was kind of very defensive, which it is. What did we expect? We had Derry and we had Armagh going. We knew beforehand that this was going to be defensive. What intrigued me from the very start was how they were going to break it down and how they were going to actually create scoring chances, who was going to take those scoring chances. For Armagh, it's unbelievable to watch the likes of Ethan Rafferty, the way he can come forward and have an effect. That will change as we go along. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was I didn't want to go to the toilet. I didn't want to leave the television. I was afraid I'd miss something. Derry had their good start. You had, everybody's talking about Conor Glass today, only for Brendan Rodgers in that first half. I think Derry could have been in serious trouble. The penalties, the extra time, the performance by Shane McGuigan, I actually thought it was so. And then we always talk about, and it was a low-scoring game. You talk about the Shane McGuigans of this world, the Rian O'Neills of this world, who'll score big scores and all that. But the defensive side of it, and people might not like you describing or enjoying that. I do. I've been involved in coaching. I just like the way they set up. I like the way teams are trying to actually break it down. And look, as the championship goes on, if you have a team who are possibly not afraid of Derry and Armagh and their defensive setup, and they poke a few holes, get a few scores on up, then you'll see your games open up that little bit more. But in terms of end-to-end stuff, in terms of Armagh being behind for most of the game and then going ahead 2 points and then Derry stepping up and grabbing it by the throat, the penalties, I thought it was brilliant. I enjoyed it. It was the most enjoyable game of football I've seen this year, based on the other rubbish around the place. Not rubbish. I shouldn't say rubbish.
You're going to be in trouble with. You're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble with football, man.
No, rubbish equals one-sided matches.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, like the other provincial finals, the last two last weekend were won by 14 points. The Dubs won by 21 points. It's you're not, you know what I mean? I can see what you mean.
Yeah, but I don't want to be teams thinking it's right. Like you have like-sided teams above an Ulster. Whatever it is above there, you have 4 or 5 games every year that there's bang, bang, bang. And it mightn't mean that Derry or Armagh are potential All-Ireland winners, but you have what we want, and that's excitement. And that's what we got yesterday, and that's why I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, Rory, anytime you can get a penalty shootout on TV, it's good TV, right?
No, I know. Suppose that's another philosophical debate about whether or not it's a fair way of going. It's a killer for Armagh to lose a second big championship match in similar circumstances. And once it went to penalties, I had a sneaky feeling for Derry, because I just think if you've got a natural goalkeeper as opposed to a makeshift one, which is Rafferty, in fairness to Rafferty, he made a very good save for one of the penalties, and obviously, had the cojones to step up and take one himself as well. I think, look, from my point of view, I thought it was sucker punch for Armagh early on. Actually, in terms of Rafferty, as I said, his natural instinct is not one of a goalkeeper, and there was, I suppose, his decision making for the first goal was questionable. He nearly got caught a second time, and despite that sucker punch, I think Armagh actually did settle down. They played some good football. I mean, a really good game. I actually did enjoy it as well. Not that matters to anybody, but what was the story of the jersey clash? I mean, it did look a bit close. That was
crazy.
It was a bit silly.
Colorblind, didn't it?
Yeah.
I do actually genuinely think the GAA need to look at that, by the way, as a side issue. I don't know how they even allow something like that to happen. It was madness.
It did look a bit. They did look very close. Now, I suppose, look, Derry were wearing red shorts. It did make it slightly easier for people watching at home. Apparently, people at the ground didn't find the same problem. Thought Rodgers, man of the match in last year's Ulster finals, upstanding again, deserved his black card. Did Armagh play well in that first half? Don't think they did, and I certainly felt there was more in them. Yet they only went in a point down, even though they had a big, strong wind. Derry seemed to get in behind them a little bit too easy, I would imagine, from Geezer's point of view. But look, I think in terms of the finale and the drama, I agree with Tomás. I think you can argue the toss about the quality of Ulster football. What you can't argue is the competitive nature of it. It's an incredible championship on that front. And it was just, look, I think it was an absolute epic, for a neutral to watch. The one thing that I would have another big bone of contention with is this advanced mark, and for that contest to nearly have been decided by Rory Grugan when the goalkeeper I don't think it was 20 meters for a start. I think it was only about 10, 12, But for a contest of that nature to be decided, whatever about it being decided on penalties, this advanced mark, I despise it. But anyway, look, that's neither here nor there.
But that's not hasn't been the first time either, Rory. There's a lot of games lately, and that type of 20
The Dubs did a load of it as well, Tomás, yesterday.
And the thing with the Dubs as well, Jacqui, I mean, there were a couple of instances where Conor O'Callaghan caught a couple, and you're saying to yourself,
he's one-on-one for the goal.
He turns around here and takes your man as a hope, like, you know, and I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Come here, Tomás, before we leave Ulster, Armagh or Derry, do you rate either of them as serious All-Ireland contenders?
You see, my issue with both really, and this might sound too simplistic, I don't think, and even before the game yesterday, James Morgan and Barry McCambridge came on for Ben Creasley and Stephen Campbell, right? My issue with them is when they go, the Dublins, the Kerrys, the Galways, the Mayos, they're able to soak up and they're able to compete with mass defences at this stage. It doesn't fear them like it once used to. It doesn't choke them like it once used to. And all those top teams have top forwards who can cause damage. And that's what like Rory referenced Armagh that first half. Armagh had plenty of ball in that first half. They had plenty of time on the ball before they got into the other half. It's breaking down defences. Like they've put so much time. Like would Derry have won that game yesterday without Shane McGuigan? They wouldn't have. And then you see the bigger teams are able to choke Shane McGuigan out of a game. And yes, they have, don't get me wrong, they have attacking defenders as good as anywhere in the country. My issue or my worry for the Armaghs and the Derrys of this world, and don't get me wrong, they could take out a big team, they could take out a Kerry, they could take out a Dublin potentially, absolutely, but winning in All-Ireland, for me, you always have to bank on fellas who get you over the line scoring wise, and that's the one area I think that they might stumble on as they go down the straight.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one of the All-Ireland contenders then, because the Dubs, look, lots of people, I guess maybe it is yesterday the first time we saw them a bit more free-flowing. The one concern I think everybody has suggested to me about Dublin is they've still only played Division 2 teams. The only Division 1 team in their group is Roscommon. It's going to be a very long time before we see them properly tested. But what did you make of them yesterday, Tomás?
Yeah, I think, look, I think it's very hard, Jacqui. I mean, we should be kind of talking about Dublin in a time where they're heading into knockout football, but they're not heading into that for another while. And they're in a group where they're not, well, you know, you have Kildare there as well, you have Roscommon. They're not going to be fully tested. So I think the Kerrys and the Dublins of this world, you're not going to get a full gauge properly yet until after that group stage. But at
least Kerry, though, have like a Mayo, like a big game. Like Dublin don't have that. Yeah.
And don't forget, Tomás, Kerry have...
I'm telling you.
Oh, here he goes, Jacqui. Here comes the era. Here it comes.
Look, there'll be at least I don't have to travel anyway. At least
it's a handy spin.
But no, I do think, Jacqui. I think, look, Dublin. I've said it from the get-go. There's this thing in them, and I heard Wheelo talking about it yesterday, where, you know, there's this kind of an inkling. Is it Desi's last year? Is it one last hurrah? Then you see the likes of James McCarthy purring yesterday. Geez, I thought he was phenomenal yesterday.
Excellent.
It did surprise me, and the lads touched on it on TV. It did surprise me how Mickey Hart's team set up. It baffles me in some ways. Like, we're here, and I remember Joe Brawley used to be saying, and I used to have this argument with him inside in the studio at times, where, you know, why defend like that? Why have numbers behind the ball? Because, Joe, if you set up the way Lout set up yesterday, things like that can happen. 5-21.
They could have had 10 goals.
Like and then no wonder, lads, team set up defensively, and all it takes is a Donegal to see it successfully win, and then you have, like, it's always going to be the way. Teams are always going to set up that way. I was very, very surprised how open they were. You can call it brave, you can call it stupid as well, but they pushed up aggressively on kickouts. They pushed up everywhere, all over the pitch. That was their game plan. They had to be happy with it. They were brave and they stuck to it. Yes, they hurt Cluxon at times, but by God, did Dublin actually just absolutely wipe them out in primary possession in the middle of the park. And that was the difference. And they were wide open. They had fellas ridiculously committed forward. The first goal just showed that. And it just happened. They didn't collapse in terms of I'm not sure. I find it baffling enough to associate that type of a I don't know how it happened under Mickey Hart's watch, because people were actually saying in his latter years with Tyrone that, my God, yes, he has a defensive side, right, but he has enough attacking players to get more of a balance up front. And he was too defensive. So then for him to actually send out a team who are obviously a lesser team than Tyrone, in terms of their ability and in terms of what they've achieved and all that, and then to set him up the way they set him up, I just found it surprising enough, to be honest with you. But Dublin, I don't think you can gauge it, Jacqui, is the long-winded answer I can say. You can't gauge Dublin right now. You can't. I'd still question their defence, even though they haven't been tested. I'd question their defence if you have a setup where they're not defensively set up one-on-one. I would question them. And I think the bigger teams, as we've said from the very, very start, this championship won't start until the big boys start going against the big boys, and that's where the Kerrys and the Dublins and the Galways will be tested and found out eventually.
That's the big question though, Rory. When Dublin get a meaningful game against whoever that is, it's just such an unknown territory for Dessie Farrell, because he has no idea how good his team are right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. They did ship a little bit of criticism in the wake of the Kildare performance. People didn't think that they played well, and I think we saw a little bit more of what we can expect from Dublin when everybody is in proper championship mode. I thought they were excellent yesterday. It was a statement. They looked lean, they looked hungry, they played with a similar type of zip. They were a bit ropey in the first 10 minutes, all right, and there was a couple of wayward hand passes. It was unusual to see Jack McCaffrey kick one away, and I think Brian Howard had a stray hand pass that got intercepted, but they settled down quickly enough after that. These are two players that have been out for a long time, and the way they kicked the ball, the way they moved it really, really quickly. I mean, as I said, very similar zip to their play like Kerry last week against a similar type of opponent. And they just eviscerated Louth thereafter. Was it Pete Dublin? No, but it wasn't far off it. Jack Mack going off is a pity. Looks like the Hammers. And I mean, I don't know, Tomás, can they be tricky to fix when they start to crop up in the latter part of your career, especially for a player like that with such explosive pace? But I think it was a very professional performance from Dublin. They went in, got the job done, absolutely annihilated them. And that's, I suppose they're lose-lose, because had it been a close game, people would be asking even more questions about their form. And you're spot on. I mean, we really won't know where things stand with them until we get to some serious knockout football. But I think they're right in the mix.
Yeah. Look, we're almost right out of time, but just one last word, Tomás, on the Kildare under-20s, because obviously, look, you've been involved with Kerry over the last year or so and watching this team up close. How good are this Kildare under-20 group, and how quickly do you think they can transition some of them up? Because there's no doubt about it, they're going to need some of them.
Yeah, I think they just had a good group. Jacqui, you had Brian Flanagan in charge of them. He's been there a couple of years now. They were very well organised from the start of the year in under 20 circles. They were highlighted as a team to watch. There was a bit of pressure on them. Don't get me started, whatever about the structures of the senior championship. Don't get me started on the way they run the under 20 championship. But if you look at it from a Leinster point of view, it's knockout everywhere else, and then it's different above in Leinster. They came through they had 6 games before they came out of Leinster, and there was a bit of pressure. They went through extra time. They had the quality, they had the homework. There was hype coming with Sligo. We got turned over by Sligo in the semi-final. Sligo were a tough, hard team. They were 5 points down against Kildare, and they brought it back to 2. And then Kildare just finished very strong. But I think overall, there's 4 or 5 of those fellas. And at the end of the day, it's huge for Brian for them to win, and that's what it's about for them, that particular group. But from a bigger, wider context, it's about how many of those fellas can you get into the senior set. And how many, I think with the 20s at once upon a time, 21s, they were probably more ready. There aren't too many of them now that make it proper at senior level. But in the next 2 or 3 years, I'd be expecting always, you go into a bar, you go in anywhere and you see an under 21 team, an All-Ireland winning team, and there's always 7 or 8 of those that make the step up. And I think even above minor, it's a more important age group than minor, because the percentage of people that actually make the senior team and make an impact with the senior team is way, way higher. So it's a huge win for Kildare, huge. And I'd imagine that there's 5, 6 of those fellas that'll make, maybe not next year, but they will make an impact in the next. And it has to be, it's coming like. And geez, well done to me. It is a hard competition, because you can say they had 6 weeks and it was bang, 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 Jacqui, every single week. So you're on about Jack McCaffrey there, Rory, with hamstrings. Like, you pick up a knock in this year's championship or a suspension or anything like that, the games are coming so fast and heavy, you could miss 2 games, no problem at all. So to win it under the circumstances that they won it in the super microwave championship that is the under 20, it was a huge achievement by Kildare.
Would you bring a few, Tomás? Would you bring a few of them in this year?
You probably would, Rory. Do you know, I don't know, would they? I think the huge thing that there still is strength, pace, time on the ball would be the big worry you'd have for them. And that's like, some of them we'd have on our team now, and I can only speak from our team, strength-wise, you have 4 or 5 lads that would be ready right now, but then it's a different ball game. It's a different kettle of fish when you talk tactically, or you talk. I always saw it myself when you were playing. The big difference between underage and under 21s and senior is the pace of the game. The pace of the game will catch them. That's not to say none of them are ready, or you see it in the hurling that they are able to take part and have an impact and have a big impact. But at under 20, I think it's just harder in the football because of the way teams defend.
Okay.
Yeah, well, look, we will see. Kildare definitely need them. We're going to have to leave it there. But Tomás, great to have you back, and I look forward to chatting to you throughout the summer.
No bother, lads. Thanks a million.
It's over the bar! Oh, holy Moses!
All right, let's chat hurling then, and Shane McGrath is with us. And look, Waterford, Clare, Shane, let's get straight to it. It's just another underperformance from Waterford. What is going on there?
I don't know, Jacqui, like, everybody seems to say that maybe the manager is the fault, and what's going on in the backroom team, and I just talking from Waterford people as well, they're just not happy. And I suppose, Jacqui, it's clear to see that fans aren't happy either. I mean, they're not going to the games. The whole setup of the team at the moment, like for example, Tony Kelly has to be stopped in from a Clare point of view, and Tip did it, like, you know, Tip did it down in us with Cathal Barrett, and like even Kilkenny did it last year with Mikey Butler. And for me, like, I don't understand the choice of Darragh Lyons being the guy to set out to try and do this for Waterford, because he's not a man marker. Like, it's not in his game. Like, he's playing around midfield normally, and just from myself personally, I wouldn't have been comfortable being a man marker, and it didn't work at all. You know, even things like, even when they're the man down and you're down 10, 11, 12 points, to continue to play a sweeper. I don't understand that either. I just don't understand their setup. I don't know, do they know what their identity is at the moment, Jacqui, as players? Like, I just don't think they do. Like, and everybody says, and it's been mentioned about Caleb Lyons' red card. Caleb Lyons' red card was a stupid red card. And it wasn't the second yellow. It was the first yellow. Like, there was no need for it. And all these things feed in. Stephen Bennett is top player. Again, he doesn't score from play yesterday. On Saturday. He scores his frees, and he's very good at the frees, but not from open play. Daisy Hutchinson, like one of the top forwards in the country, and like inside forwards, and we're rarely seeing him playing as an inside forward. And for me, Jacqui, those things, along with other things as well, I think just snowball. It's a snowball effect that what's going on there at the moment is not good. Their physical fitness doesn't seem to be able to match up to other intercounty teams. They don't seem to have a structure. Tyga Burka obviously is the best sweeper in the country, bar none in my opinion. Obviously, he's a massive loss. but they just don't seem to be comfortable in when it's 1v1. Case in point, Clare's goal in the first half. They're turned over. It's a 2v2 situation. They're obviously used to that comfort of maybe an extra defender there. They're not able to deal with it. Clare get a goal, very well finished by Ian Galvin. So look, I think all those things, Jacqui, I think just add up to, it's just a very, very bad year for Waterford. It's a bad year underage with the minors, with the under-20s. The fans aren't going anymore. Something seriously needs to change, in my opinion.
Rory, I saw Jacqui Tyrrell calling it a dark day for Waterford hurling. I even felt it was even stronger than that. Like, I think this is a full-blown crisis now.
Yeah, full-blown. You're 100%. There would appear, and again, look, you're only looking at it from the outside, and it's very, very difficult to make a proper assessment. But their spirit does seem to be broken. Something is broken in the spirit of Waterford GAA, and like, I'd nearly call on the county board to, like, they've got to see one of the upsides of this ridiculous calendar is they'll have a full year before they play competitive proper hurling again. Obviously, they have a dead rubber from their point of view against Tipperary, where they're playing for nothing else but pride. But they do have time now to plan, because like, this is a mature team, so like, they have a year really to maybe circle the wagons a small bit. Put the call out to the Tony Brown. Get Tony Brown back. What's Tony Brown doing up in Tipperary? Get Tony Brown back down to Waterford and say, forget about Tipperary, Tony. We need you. We need Ken McGrath. We need the Paul Flynns. Let's go in and talk to Ballygunner. What are they doing in Ballygunner that's so effective? The hard work. Let's get Derek McGrath back involved. Let's get Dan Shanahan boots on the ground. Like, there's a lot of really brilliant hurling people and brilliant GA people within Waterford that this can be turned around, but they need to act, and you need a proactive county board, which I think there is there, to really grasp this nettle. I mean, one of the big things for me, I loved the Waterford team of the noughties, Jacqui. They came up against our own Cork team, and there were some incredible battles, right? And by and large, Justin McCarthy was the manager, and I have a huge amount of time for Justin. His book is one of the best GA books you'll ever read, Hooked. It was written in conjunction with Kieran Shannon. And if you read Justin's book, Justin has a famous saying, winning alone isn't enough, you must win with style. Why did people get in? Why did Waterford become nearly everybody's second team? Why did Waterford become this swashbuckling team? It was because of the way Justin had them coached. They were fantastic to watch. That's the reason we got the players like Tyg de Burka and Austin Gleeson and all these fantastic players come through, because they saw the Ken McGraths and Paul Flynns and John Millans play this brand of hurling that was fantastic to watch. I think their brand of hurling has turned supporters off. I think they need to start looking more introspectively, maybe get slightly insular, look to their own, find solutions from within, dispense with the notion that outside managers can solve all, because obviously they can't, and remove all the excuses that the players might look to kind of lean on from a crutch point of view, and try and resurrect this thing. Because look, as I said, they have time now to take stock. It's an awful long time before there will be competitive hurling again, and there's just going to have to be some really harsh home truths, and some really, like self-reflection, deep self-reflection have to go on, because they do need to turn the ship around for everybody involved in Waterford hurling.
Do you know, Shane, if you go back a couple of weeks, right, and take us back to the Limerick game and how close this Waterford team pushed them, and all the things that, like, I remember Shane Dowling doing a piece on the Sunday game that night about the tactics that Davy got right, and just, the way that they set up, and they were very close to beating the All-Ireland champions. Fast forward then a couple of weeks and look where we are now, and we're talking about a full-blown crisis. Like, I don't know if maybe just Limerick were way off that day and it was a bad judgment, or have Waterford just over the last few weeks just gotten continuously worse. Like, what has led to this downfall?
Yeah, a few things there, Jacqui. I suppose for me, like, Waterford played their All-Ireland final against Limerick, and I suppose that would be the game that they targeted, and they went at it hard, and obviously they picked up injuries that day as well, and I think they were spent after it. Like, I think they had nothing left after it, and I suppose mentally, even going there, giving everything, being the better team on the day. Like, I was at the game, and they were the better team on the day, but to still come away and be the losers, like, I think that's it. Like, you give everything, you play really well, but you don't win the game. And then with the injuries, and just think, like, just particularly now the last two games as well, their fitness levels look poor, like for inter-county level. Like, I mean, like, say, just even look at Tip, like trying to survive with Cork. And like, I tell you, lads, as a Tip group, they have this group probably have never trained as hard as they have over the last number of months. And you know, they found it hard to live with Cork's movement and everything. But like, Waterford didn't lay glove on them because they just weren't able. And again, I'll use Tip as an example. Tip weren't able last year. They weren't fit enough. Waterford weren't fit enough, or didn't have the S&C work done to live with Cork. It was fairly evident on Saturday that they weren't anywhere near as fit as Clare either. That's my take on it, Jacqui.
But is it deeper though? Is it deeper, Jacqui and Shane? I mean, I know a season can spin on the pin of a head very, very easily, and one result can, lead to what might feel like a full-blown crisis. But they're not having any success at underage level. This is a couple of years now in the making. There's a consistent pattern here in terms of their results, particularly in round robin hurling. Like, the careers of these players are going to pass by very, very quickly. You're hoping then for another generation to come through. Does that seem likely with what's happening at underage level? I think are the problems, I suppose, and the question is the problem a little deeper than, they lost to Limerick and the whole season blew up in their face?
Yeah, look, it's not good underage either. I mean, having not won a match this year, like, literally, at all. And like, I think I feel like we're here, lads, we're talking about Waterford. Like, I mean, Clare are in a great place as well. They're absolutely flying it. The one thing I took from Brian Lohan's interviews after the match was we had to back up the Gaelic grounds, like, and they did. They backed it up and more, like, and all this without their go-to guy for the league, like Aidan McCarthy. I mean, that's massive. Like, in previous years, maybe if they lose a top guy, they could struggle, like, but the thing for me is when Brian Lohan sits down and he puts the paper down in front of him with his selectors and his backroom team, now he has the strongest group, in my opinion, that he can pick from his time as a manager, and that's massive. But like, Waterford, they are in a bad place. It doesn't seem to be getting any better, and like, from even playing against Waterford or known Waterford people, the one thing they always had was they had massive support. They always had great support. They always brought great colour to the place. They always brought a great atmosphere to the place. And the fans, lads, the hurling people down in Waterford, they're just not supporting the team at the moment. And I suppose, what do you do? Like, the players are going out and they're trying their best. They're not going out to lose, but it's just not happening. It's not happening at all grades. And obviously, lads, we can see what the result is at the moment, like, so.
I think you're right about Clare, though, because when you do turn it on a positive, like, just look what they're doing now. And like, I mean, that game now at the weekend, when you look at just the way that the Munster Championship is falling and the potential that Limerick could go out this weekend, is like, it's unbelievable the way that things have turned around. And Clare have played a big part in that. I think to me, they've probably been the team of the championship in a lot of ways, just in watching their performances and how quickly they've managed to turn things around, Shane.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and I think, Jacqui, it is down to the fact that everyone is available and everyone is fit. Like, Aidan McCarthy's back. Shane O'Donnell is roaring again.
Buck Rogers.
Mark Rogers, Tony Kelly, Ryan Taylor. Carl Malone. Like the hurling he's doing at the moment. Dave Fitzgerald. I just think Brian Lohan is sitting down every week going, I'm just so happy that I have all these lads now, and even compared to the other semi-final last year, I mean, does Brian
Lohan get happy?
Yeah, he does. He was smiling after the Limerick game, and like, it's great to see the emotion in him. Like, he's I'd say they love hurling for him, Rory. From talking to Clare people, I'd say what he brings to it in the dressing room. Like, even if lads, there's a lot of young Clare guys there that might have never seen maybe Brian Lohan even play. Like, they might have never gone and seen him play live, but they would hear stories about him and, the red helmet and the leader he was. And I'd say what he does for him in the dressing room is unbelievable. I'd say the respect he has off the lads is unreal. I'd love to be a fly in the wall when he makes one of those inspirational, we need to do it for each other, we need to do it for Clare kind of speeches, because I'd say there's very few better than him. Dalo is probably one of the best, maybe, that to get going. I remember Liam Sheedy, even go back to Liam again. I remember he brought Dalo in, and when his club Portrue were in an North final, just to give a kind of a do it for the parish kind of speech. And I'd say, lads, Ryan Lohan has these boys, just has them right, has them ticking. And you talk about pride and you talk about passion. But again, that's all important, lads. But if you don't have the players to carry out these things, it's very hard. And what he has now is he has a group. They're all ticking. They're all fit. They're all roaring for success. I mean, not one of them has a Munster Championship medal, lads. None of them. 1998, last time Clare won a Munster final. Have no doubt about it. That has to be a big target for them. And they have a chance to do it. They have an unbelievable chance to do it. And even Munster final last year, brilliant performance. Now throw in Aidan McCarthy into the mix there. Now throw in a more experienced Mark Rogers. Now throw in a more experienced Shane Meehan. Do you know what I mean? And it's a stronger group. I said it earlier on in the year. If there was one team that really excited me, or maybe, I felt had a great chance to challenge Limerick before the championship got going, I felt it was Clare, because of the bodies they have, because they have everyone, and because of, I suppose the experience they would have gained from last year, lads, of being so close to Limerick. They just fell flat in their face in our semi-final because, John Conlon was out. Well, I don't think Tony Kelly was right playing the match. I believe he was sick coming into the game. And I just think they've learned so much. And I think now, if there is a time for them for success, I think now they know, and now they really believe that now is the time, lads, in my opinion.
No better way to show it either, Rory, than having Cork coming to Ennis at the weekend. I do think for Clare, they will see this as a huge opportunity, and Cork will too, by the way, because they're right in the hunt, which makes that game the pick of the games, really.
Oh, it's huge, Jacqui. I mean, and look, Cusack Park has been a graveyard for Cork teams of late. So this is not an easy task. There's a right little rivalry beginning to develop between the two counties. Obviously, contesting the minor Munster final last week, the under-20s are taking each other on tonight. Cork will be probably favourites to win that, given their record in the round robin. But I think it'll be a very, very competitive game again. And then that obviously leads into the senior match at the weekend. But just right across the board, everything that's going on within Clare is just so impressive. I think there's been a change in terms of, we spoke about, maybe the spirit being slightly broken in Waterford. Well, you couldn't say that about Clare. By the way, Shane, how valuable were those 2 points that Tipperary picked up on day one up in Ennis now in the overall context of things? And obviously that was probably the day to catch them because they were slightly cold. And obviously they had a couple of boo-boos early on in terms of the goals that they conceded. But no, look, I think these 2 matches that are coming up next weekend, massive, Jacqui. I mean, just absolute. They're like 2 All-Ireland finals. Yeah,
they are. Because, let's just say, if Cork win and Tip win, the All-Ireland champions are out. They can't catch Clare. Shane, you could have given me any odds at the start of the year of this happening, and I would have said absolutely no chance. But Tip now must feel, and they must sense that as well, that they could smell blood and try to go for this as well.
And a Limerick minus Sean Finn. Now we've seen Limerick in the past, obviously cope with plenty of injuries, but Sean Finn is a special talent. So it's just so intriguing. Sorry, Shane.
Oh yeah, it does help when you can bring an all-star on, I suppose, Rory. Come here, lads. I tell you now, there's the buzz around Tip is good at the moment. It was a bit disappointing the way our maybe our underage teams finished up, with results and stuff. But as regards the senior lads, there's a great feeling about it, and I suppose I really hope. There's a big Tip crowd in Thurles. The stands are sold out. The terraces are getting there, so there'll be some buzz. And
it's a sellout in Ennis as well. I mean, it's just incredible, the crowds. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great, and the atmospheres are unbelievable. I suppose, Jacqui, as you said, there's no way anyone could believe that in match 3 for Limerick and match 3 for Tip that Tip could potentially have a chance to knock out Limerick. No way anyone could foresee that. I don't care what kind of mystic Meg talents you might have, but I think for me, right, this is the way I feel about the Tip Limerick game. I think it's kind of maybe a free shot for Tip in a way, because I think they're in a good place and they have Waterford as the last game. Things aren't going well there. Yeah, Waterford playing for pride, but you know what, Tip will be playing for a bit of pride too in the form of Liam Cahill and what went on with Waterford last year as well. So, that's going to be a factor in it as well. And Davy and Liam had a few words after the league game. I'm sure they weren't exactly inviting each other to each other's house for tea or anything, when they were saying those few words. So that's going to be an issue as well. So I believe 5 points will get you through. So I just think for Tip the next day, will they go for it? 100% they'll go for it. 100%. Because I don't think Liam Cahill knows how to do anything else. And obviously Limerick have the 3 weeks. They've been working away, training hard. You know, they would have time to set up for Tip. They would have watched the Cork game. And like it's do or die. Like it is do or die. If Cork get a result down in Ennis at 2:00 and that result filters through to Thurles, and I tell you, if Tip do manage to get a result over Limerick, they'll, you know, it'd be like a little mini All Ireland for a lot of Tip people, I suppose. I'm living here near enough the border. Even when we have a county colours day in the school, there's a lot of Limerick jerseys around. So you know, we know about the rivalry. We know about the, I suppose, the intensity between the two counties there. And Limerick, there's no point saying anything else, Limerick have had the upper hand for the last 4 or 5 years on us now. So it'll be a big day. And you know what, lads, Limerick have had the upper hand on Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens as well. With Waterford, it's the one team they haven't bet. So look, lads, with all those things, all those mixtures, all those ingredients, I think it's making for another great weekend in the Munster Hurling Championship. And you know, isn't it great that I suppose we've 2 provincial competitions that are keeping the interest going in it, one being the Munster Hurling and the other being the Ulster football. And I suppose we had a great weekend with the football in the Ulster, and I suppose we're going to have another epic weekend, I think, next weekend, lads.
Yeah, I do wonder what is going through John Kiley's mind this week, Rory, because there's no doubt about it. It's got to be, you know, literally all hands on deck to get themselves out of the here. I don't even think he could have foreseen that they'd be in this position trying to scramble even just to get out of Munster.
Yeah, it's a very good question. You know, like there'll be added pressure. The only thing I'd say is this, and like I'm not saying that I was predicting in any way that Limerick would fail to get out of Munster, and I still think they will. They'll potentially still be in the Munster final. I mean, that's it.
That's the funny thing.
The chances are they could go and beat Tipperary on Sunday, and then they'll have Cork at home in the last match. So, you know, look, we're not writing their epitaph just yet, but they are only human. They've been on an incredible run. It is very difficult to sustain that winning mentality when you've won as much. I mean, I think Mick Foley made the point. There are no more lands for Limerick to conquer at this stage. They've done 3 in a row. They've done 4 in a row in Munster. I think they're going for 5 in a row in Munster, which I think has only ever been done before by Cork, maybe in the late 70s, early 80s. And so, like, this is just the most incredible time for them. And I suppose, like, there's a natural wear and tear that will come into it. Obviously, he's got a selection issue around Garrett Haggerty. Will he start the next day? You'd obviously assume that he will. And then, you know, who comes in instead of Sean Finn? That looks fairly straightforward as well. So they'll be picking from a reasonably full deck. It's just in terms of their motivations, because I think they will be coming up against the Tipperary that, you know, there's an energy about this particular Tip bunch that we haven't seen from a Tipperary team for a while. So they're not going to get anything soft in Thurles on Sunday. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
I am just so looking forward to it. It is just going to be such a great weekend. Can't wait to do it all. Shane, thanks a million for being with us. I look forward to the week. I'm sure you're going to enjoy Thurles and everything that it has to offer at the weekend. There'll be a bit of crack around, no doubt.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say there'll be a great buzz around. Great buzz around Ennis, great buzz around Thurles, and hopefully we'll get a bit of weather for it as well, Jacqui. It'll definitely help the situation. So yeah, really looking forward to it, lads.
Big time. All right. Thanks a million, lads. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, there's the whistle. It's over.